Hi, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. Welcome to this week's edition of Kibbitzing with Kagan, brief conversations with people I find fascinating. As the vice chair of the committee that oversees election law, I am especially thrilled to have my friend and Maryland's new state administrator of elections, Jared DeMarinis, as my special guest today. Jared, thank you so much for taking time to chat.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. You've been a fabulous advocate for elections for many, many years, and hopefully we'll change the name of that committee to add that extra A. Finally. Right. I know that's one of your little pet things to do, so I'm all for it.
It's called Education, Energy, and the Environment, and I always say, and elections. So we'll see. So, Jared, you grew up in New Jersey. You went to Villanova undergrad and Rutgers for law school.
Yes.
When did you first get interested? So I'm going to sort of spend less time on your background than I normally do because I have tons of questions for you. When did you first get interested in election administration?
Well, I was always interested in politics and elections and campaigns. So back in my background, I came working on campaigns and working on elections. And basically, I think after Bush v. Gore in 2000, when I was in law school, that I started to actually get into election administration. I think it kind of elevated that entire case, elevated the need for more centralization, standardization, and highlighted a lot of the problems that were basically always there for election officials, but never really discussed. And since then, since that court case, it has only exponentially grown since then.
So was anyone else in your family, either of your parents or anyone, did you have role models about elections or politics, policy? You worked for Senator Torricelli in New Jersey.
Yes, I guess my family was always, lively discussions at the dinner table with politics. Yeah. I was raised by a single mother, so there was always those issues confronting, her rights and what was going on and seeing the impact of it all. I mean, it all just makes an impact on you. But I was always involved in the conversations, and I was not one to hold back from my opinions on certain topics as well with the adults. So it was a lot of fun, but at the same time, it was good conversations, and I'll leave it at that.
You have siblings, and where are you in the birth order if you do?
So I am the oldest, and I have a sister. She's 20 years younger than me. So, yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Jared, you were from 2005 to just a few weeks ago, director of candidacy and campaign finance. Why don't you explain what that role is in Maryland State Board of Elections, what the problems were that you had to deal with, and what sort of folks you had to work with?
Well, I mean, it's completely the disclosure element to making sure that everyone understands how and where these campaigns are receiving its funds. And it really is important for people to understand, because how you receive your money is basically a little bit of a looking glass on how you would probably govern and, your supporters and everything. So it's very important of that nature. My role was not only to make sure that disclosure was happening on a timely basis, but also enforcing the laws to make sure that the monies that were coming in were compliant with the law. Starting in 2005, I think that when I first took over, Maryland was not in, I would say, the top tier or leading the fight for disclosure in campaign finance. And one of the things that I'm most proud of was that moving this with the help of the General Assembly and senators like you, pushing laws and making Maryland cutting edge in disclosure and basically moving us from mid-level or lower to now being one of the top states in the nation on campaign disclosure, and basically a model between our impacts on independent expenditure entities, and really taking almost every one of the court cases and looking at it and developing laws to help make sure that the citizens get a full picture of who's funding and who's trying to influence their votes.
So I was thinking about this in preparing for this conversation. Your constituents, so to speak, include candidates, elected officials, people's opponents, the press, advocates like League of Women Voters and Common
Yep.
Cause. And all. What are they looking for most? And what was the most common violation that, issue that you had to struggle with?
Well, the one thing about a little bit of campaign finance and violations is that it's a I always say it's like almost a self-regulated business, because by the time I can look at something, I'm still getting reports in. Your opponent has already looked at that specific person and has gone over line by line, detailed, and want to know specific answers about this particular entry. And I would be getting, I'm still tracking down people filing reports, and they're emailing me complaints going, this is wrong, this is wrong. So that's where it's kind of self-regulated in a sense. And that because you have so many eyes on this, it helps when you deliver the product in almost a timely manner, because each has different little, I would say, agendas, right? The opponent wants to go after, much malign their candidate, and good government are just trying to go for policy. So, in this role, I kind of balance it all, as well as just making sure that it's just done in conformity with the law.
Okay. So that was your old role.
Yes.
So the State Board of Elections, which is a bipartisan 5-member group that was chaired by, and in the majority with Republicans, 3-2 at the time of the selection and the interview process, unanimously voted to select you as our new state administrator.
Yes.
So yay, congratulations.
Thank you.
On September 1st, you had your first day. So you succeeded Linda Lamone, who had been there for more than 25 years. And so let me start with, what about the Lamone tenure do you especially want to keep, and what do you especially want to modify, enhance, or change?
Well, I think we have a good foundation here. I think that, we have a solid framework in which, we can build off of. I think that, the thing is, election administration has fundamentally changed in the last couple of years. And, in the past, election administrations was more supposed to be, passive in delivering information and outreach. And, I think the biggest thing that I've already kind of tried to do this a little bit with my social media platforms there, is be much more accessible in that. Now, in the past, it was just, and I see that talking to the local election directors as well, it's information is being consumed in a different way. And as an election administrator now, I think we have to adapt to those times. And so we had a lot of good information, and we had a good foundation from that era, but now I'm just kind of making it more pronounced and available to things. And, going out to the local boards and seeing and talking about those policies, and, really combating this problem that we face, which is disinformation about election administration and everything else. Perfect. Good lead in, right?
Information and social media, that is on the list. I have so many things to cover with you. So social media regarding elections, regarding voting, regarding candidates even, is helpful, except when it's not. So what do you think, SBE, the State Board of Elections, is there a role there in correcting misinformation and disinformation when people are literally sort of misleading or putting out false information to the general public?
I mean, there's things that, let me just say, candidates going after another person's record, that's always fair game. Totally. And that's part of the game of politics, right? But when you start trying to disenfranchise voters, I don't care on either side of the political spectrum here, that's now outside the boundaries of the game. And that's where, where state administrator as myself needs to come in and proactively go there and start saying to them, no, this is election day. This is your vote will be counted. Mail-in ballots are very much very legitimate ways of voting. Like this is this is no longer, you can't be sitting on the sidelines for this. You have to be much more active and explain it to them. And
Yes.
the one thing about this is, by being a trusted source and being on social media, these things go viral very fast. And
Absolutely.
if basically you kind of see it now with just the polling now. We always had a bunch of people that never really truly believed in certain aspects of elections, but that was a very small fraction of everything. It has subsequently grown because of the social media and what has occurred with it. So you have to use the same tools to kind of battle back and give a counterbalance to that.
So again, we're going to get to all of the issues, and I will help. We will cover that. So mail-in ballots, the advantages and disadvantages for administrators. Now, canvassing and counting them all, processing them all, has been a huge challenge. But luckily, my bill that Governor Hogan vetoed did get passed and signed into law by Governor Westmore last session. So we will be able to start processing the mail-in ballots and get people election results more quickly. Can you just speak to that and explain just in a couple of sentences why that's so important and why that was an issue that we actually went to court over to make sure that we had the right to do this?
Well, I think that a lot of people look at election day as still the final day. And, people want to have the winners and losers kind of publicly declared by the press. Now, we always know that the canvass was always afterwards, but 90% of the votes were always cast and counted at that particular time. Yes. So this, with your leadership and the House helping pass it, we are now allowed to start canvassing 8 days earlier. The other part too, which is a part of that bill, which was, it made the mail-in ballots being delivered to domestic and all the permanent mail-in ballot recipients 43 days prior to the election. So now they also have a date certain as to when they will be receiving it if you're already on the list. And so it's important that then they start to know 43 days, start checking your mailbox, it's going to be coming, and we'll have the drop boxes ready to go. And then bang, as soon as you drop it off, 8 days before the elections, we're going to start counting that. And just lastly, I'm sorry, because there was a lot in that bill. It allowed flexibility too with the counting, because it mandated the 8 days, but some of the smaller counties that have less population and less mail-in ballots have the ability to request waivers. So campaigns are not always stressed to say now, or the local board of canvassers have to be there for those 8 days counting literally nothing. Like, we're making it so that it was a good government bill.
So let's talk about briefly, curing was also part of that bill. So if somebody sends in their mail-in ballot and they forgot to sign the envelope, that ballot can't be counted. So explain what curing is. People somehow think that that's iffy or questionable.
So it's not. It was just like a technical oversight with mail-in ballots. Like, sometimes there's a signature that they have to sign under the oath that they voted this and they mailed it in. We have no excuse mail-in ballots, so it's not like you have to have some sort of reason to request this. Maryland is one of the more progressive states in that fashion. And so, but you still have to attest that I was the one that filled this out and moved it forward and mailed it in. Sometimes you forget to sign that, and basically at that point there, you shouldn't disenfranchise a person based upon a small technical. You should allow for an opportunity for them to cure while it's still being counted. So it's, and so this basically, the local boards now will have the ability to reach out to that voter to say to them, there is we have not opened your ballot. We have not even looked, we've put it off to the side and said, it has not been rejected fully. It has not, like, you have some time, but you have a limited amount of time. It's not all the time. And you have to come in and
give options of how to fix. So conspiracy theories have abounded in recent years. So first, a yes/no questions. Is there any aspect of the conspiracy theories that you find to be valid?
Well, I mean, there's 1,000 conspiracy theories out there. So, but overall, most of the conspiracy theories are not valid. They're not based upon any sort of factual analysis.
Are there dead people voting in Maryland? Are there people in Maryland who thousands of them are voting twice? Are they stuffing the drop-off boxes with phony baloney ballots? Are there, like some of the things that we've heard, is there any validity, any finding, any research that shows any of that to be accurate?
Double voting is not an issue in the state of Maryland, but we do have the state prosecutor's office that is ready and willing to prosecute when we have those cases, those rare, infrequent cases, the outliers that do occur. They're ready to prosecute, and we're ready to provide the appropriate evidence to support any of those claims.
Drop-off boxes, there are video cameras.
24-hour surveillance when we put them out there, right? And we make sure that they're safe and secure. And, you know, if there's tampering, those are crimes. And, you know, we have the video evidence to give it to local law enforcement.
Has there been an issue? Has that gone to law enforcement yet, to your knowledge?
No. I almost wanted to not answer that question or have that question, because now it's like one of those, the universe may like come back, like, you know, like, but at one point there, right.
But in general, I can drop off my ballot, my sister's ballot, my friend's ballot, like that's not a problem. And it will be videotaped and no one's messing with it or taking it out or modifying my ballot in any way. You mentioned the local boards of elections. In Maryland, there is a county, each county has a local board of elections. And one of the really cool things that you have pledged to do is visit each one of those counties. And I know you've started that, and I know you've got more to go. Why don't you say what you hope to learn in these visits, and what's the most surprising thing you've heard from a local elections leader?
So one, each one has their own little challenges and everything. And the way it's kind of financed is kind of strange, because it's like county financing, a state agency, and there's just that little dynamic of things as well, because the county budget has to pay for certain things. So they're not necessarily overjoyed with paying for locations. So it's a little bit of a dance there. The biggest thing that I've come for and seen is the issue of space is always a problem with warehouses and with our equipment, and you know, making sure that this voting system, which is not the old lever machines that people think of, where it's like steel and metal. These are computers, like, and this is, you know, high tech, you know, computers, and they need to be stored in that type of fashion.
Yes.
So, you know, making sure that they have the proper storage for it. And basically, you know, understanding the different areas and concerns from them, because each one is, oh, driving this much is not a big deal in this county, or
Right.
you know, this area here never makes a left turn, because they always go, and you get the little local feel for everything.
Yes.
And one of the cooler ones was when I went to Dorchester County, and their office, and they were in the county building at one point, was right next to the water. And I think I joked on my ex account, I don't know, Twitter account, that maybe we should have dockside voting, because they could pull up with a dock and we could have a drop box right there, and the boats can just be delivering it rather than cars at that point there. But you know, I've gone through 9, and so you know, I'm going to visit them all, and I think it's been well received by the locals. They've enjoyed me coming out there and been gracious and awesome hosts for me.
Kudos to you. Thank you for doing that. As you know, and as we've discussed, I have been to 21 of the 24 counties to see their 911 centers, and I'm hoping to accompany you to a couple of the election centers as well. You mentioned funding. One of the emergency bills that I'll be bringing this year, as you know, is clarifying the 50-50 split. There's some stuff that the state pays for, some stuff the county pays for, and some stuff that's a shared cost. Anything, you mentioned funding. Do you want to
I mean,
Elaborate
it's
on.
something we'll have to look at budget wise and everything. I mean, but yes, it's something that we should probably, uh, make sure that everyone is on the same page. And one of the things that I want to do now too, and I've reached out to the county organization, MACO. I know I'm not supposed to use acronyms there, but
Association of Counties. Yes.
yes, is that I want to have a meeting with the county budget directors too, to kind of
Yeah.
prepare them, to
Love
talk to them about what's upcoming for planning for their budgets in the future. And I want to
Good.
have that almost a yearly type of meeting with them.
Perfect. Well, before we get back into funding and other issues like that, you mentioned that our voting systems are electronic, they're computerized. How fearful are you of hacks? And, again, the conspiracy theorists who say, oh, this software and, inaccurate results. I have to brag that NIST, the National Institutes of Standards and Technology, which comes up with all the ways that election equipment has to be certified and all that, is in the heart of my district in Gaithersburg. But talk about how we make sure that our election systems, our voting systems, are not hacked and that the results are the results.
I mean, basically, one, we have at the end there, the best is we have paper ballots. I mean, let's just, at the end, you can always trust the system because I always like to say, you can pop the top, count the ballots. That's if there's any sort of outliers or something that was a statistical anomaly.
Yes.
We always have that. And no matter what occurs, you always have that ballot right then and there to count. And so if, one, we have, besides all the testing and LNA, which is logic and accuracy testing, to making sure that this equipment is certified to the federal standards, to our standards, to ensure everything is running smoothly and efficiently. You always have that as the complete backup for security purposes. And so I think any individual knows when we say these are the results and they've been certified and reviewed, that they can fully feel confident in that they are what they are.
Good. One of the issues that has come up just recently at the most recent board meeting, I believe, is our poll books. Rather than getting new ones for the 2024 elections, we're going to continue with our current ones. Top line, average person. What should the average person know about what a poll book is? And do we have any reason to fear about keeping the current ones rather than getting new ones now and waiting another year or two?
We have no fears about using the existing system. We would like to have used the newer system, but overall, the existing ones can and will be used successfully for the 24 election. Basically, the poll books is just taking, when you used to go to the polls, you used to have to sign the book to find your name in there. This is now all electronic, so it's a lot faster. You don't have to flip through pages. You don't have to carry all these the books and the precincts there. We can find you, and if you go to the wrong place, we can issue you a provisional ballot instantly. It makes life a lot easier for individuals to vote and speeds along the process. So that's where why like the electronic poll books are the most efficient way to go. But this was a little bit of a delay, and something that listen, I'm happy to kind of steer and navigate the ship through these little waters here.
Right. So I want to go from sort of the equipment and the offices to the election issues. So before I do that, I just want to talk briefly. Maryland has closed primaries. You have to be a Democrat to vote in the Democratic primary. You have to be a Republican to vote in the Republican primary. And if you are not affiliated, if you're in the Green Party, if you're in any other party, you don't get to vote in the primary. Anything you want to say about that? How unique are we with that? And obviously that's current law.
I was going to say, well, those are policy decisions, and I leave them up to you and the rest of the General Assembly to tell us how to and who opens up the primaries to whom, and we'll be ready to administer the law effectively and efficiently.
Yes. So we have a public fund, a public campaign fund that helps people running for governor for statewide office. And we do a little checkoff on our tax returns. Why don't you speak about that? It doesn't get very much attention. Is there enough money? If who has taken advantage of that opportunity most recently? Is it working?
So I would say prior to 2014, it was a dormant use. It was in existence for about almost now it's going to be in existence for almost 50 years. Before 2014, it was only used once in 94. Right, right,
Okay.
with and that election there. It was always underfunded because it was strictly with just the tax add-on basically for it.
Yes.
2014, I know that he vetoed your bill, but he did elect he Governor Hogan was elected using public financing, and so
Yes.
it did show that you could use it, and it
Yes.
worked. So
Yes.
and ever since that election, we've always had 1 to 2 people that have at least applied for the funds at that point there. And they haven't been as successful, but doesn't mean you being elected is not about the success of the program. And
Right.
it does show that you can use and be a viable candidate as a small dollar candidate. Basically, because of that, we have expanded it to the counties. Montgomery County, which I believe won a national award for it with the National Association of Counties for its program and implementing it in the 2 election cycles ago. And it has been spread to Howard County, and the Baltimore City is now going to have a public financing program.
Right. Okay.
Baltimore County and Prince George's. And so it is basically fully financed. The last session we have it now. So it's at least it's in the best place it's been since its inception.
Good. So, and that's because we want anyone to be able to afford to run for governor. And so that's great. Even more important than that is we want everyone who's legally allowed to vote to be registered and to vote. I'm even wearing my vote pin here. We recently celebrated National Voter Registration Day. How did that go in Maryland? Did we see people paying attention?
We did. So a couple of things about it. One, that was my first official press release as a state administrator was for it. So I was quite happy about that, to celebrate their enfranchisement. And I did a little bit of digging as to which is our online voter registration piece there. Now, normally we get, a handful of people, 30, 90, every day, like kind of like small, but
sure,
steady,
something.
right? Like, like normal. On that day, the applications were over 460. So it definitely had an impact. And I actually did a little bit of research with state archives about our first voter registration law in the state of Maryland, which was in the 1864 Constitution of Maryland. And that was the first time ever voter registration was ever mentioned. And the General Assembly passed its first act in 1865 on voter registration.
Very cool.
So, and I tweeted about that too. So if you want to learn more, it's on my Twitter.
Well,
So,
and to be clear, your dog encouraged people to register to vote too.
exactly.
Chewy is social media, and he cares about voter registration.
Chewbacca is my buddy, and he'll always be there for voter registration.
Excellent. So now, once people get registered and once they start learning about candidates and learning about their options as to how to vote, one of the things they can do is be an election judge. And that's been a challenge. So how are you thinking about helping the locals to recruit election judges?
So one, I believe last General Assembly, we passed a bill. And thank you for your little amendment as well, because it was a voter education portion of House Bill 1200. And I think it's had some sort of impact because, for example, I was just in Frederick County and I was visiting them, and I was specifically asking about how their election judge recruitment is going. And they have over 532 judges right now already signed up, of which about 81% are returning judges. So that
Right.
extra bonus of
Right.
$100 on the bill there has really made an impact on things.
That's
So,
right.
that's just one example. Listen, I'm never going to not say we're in great place for our judges.
Right.
Those will never come out of my mouth. But it is, right now it is we're moving, and we are
Hopeful.
trying to use that bill, and we're going to use the education program to help recruit more judges. What I
Right.
would like to really see is seeing more from the younger voters, because
Yes.
one, they are usually they don't participate at high levels as other age
Mhm.
groups. And
Mhm.
once you become an election judge, they're most likely going to force their friends to come out and visit.
I'll bet.
And once they visit, they'll be voting. So, and then
Yes.
once you go once, then you'll be like, I'll get
For
used to
life.
it. And you just get used to voting. And, so that's what I want to see. And I want to start engaging high school and community colleges to help with election judges as well.
So just to be clear about election judges, some number of them flake, some number don't ever
Yes.
show up, or they don't do the training, or they're sick, or they have to take an emergency business trip or visit their aunt in Dubuque or whatever.
Right.
And so early numbers in the fall of 2023 may not be looking exactly the same for next May of 2024.
Exactly. Yes. But right. They're encouraging. I'd rather say encouraging than right.
And to be clear, the bill that Jared mentioned was a bump up in pay. I required that it be a 50-50 split so that the counties, it wasn't an unfunded mandate making the counties pay for all the extra pay raise, but that the state would pay for half. And then that there be a statewide marketing campaign on recruitment materials that the locals could use for free. So I'm glad you think that that's all making a difference. So that's terrific. So let's talk about threats against election officials. As now that we're talking about election judges, there may be people who are worried about whether they can safely be an election judge and be in a polling place. What has happened in Maryland, and what do we see around the country that Maryland needs to be taking action? And as you know, I may be submitting legislation to protect our election workers, our employees, and our workers.
So sadly, the reality of the situation is that my brethren out there are under attack, and it's these vitriol. Right? It is just nasty, and luckily we are not as in dire straits as in Arizona and other places.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it has washed up on the shores of Maryland. We've had incidences of the doxing of election judges. We've had instances of, I would say, threatening letters, and, I don't know, I want to say like crude jokes of, white powder trying to be delivered, not that it was baking soda, but, in this day and age, you can never be too secure and everything else. And one of the things is that we have to look at the physical security of our buildings now, and making sure not just the cyber part, but just that part as well. And, this is just the sad reality that we're just trying to administer and count votes and make sure that everyone is there. And we're now engaged in such a partisan battle here. And we're not. We are just trying to do it in a nonpartisan, equal,
Do democracy.
right?
Do democracy.
Exactly. But yes, it is one of those things that we look at and just go, where is a little bit more protection? And, yes, it does have an impact on judge recruitment. It does have an impact on hiring recruitment as well. It's not, you have to make sure, and it weighed on me a little bit going into this position as well, because I wanted to make sure that I was out and about, and when you put yourself out there, you're going to be attacked, and so, but someone has to do it, and that's why I stepped up for that.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. We talked about video cameras on the drop-off boxes, but as you know, Delegate Mark Corman and I have passed a series of transparency bills. It started with the State Board of Elections because they wouldn't do transparency under the old administration. And so people had to drive down from Garrett County or from Somerset County to find out what's going on at their State Board of Elections. They had to show up in person. It was absurd. So now the law requires live streaming, the posting of the agenda and the meeting materials at least 48 hours in advance, the minutes and all of that in the video are all posted online. Everything is publicly available, so it's accountable. We talk about the importance of transparency, especially in light of the conspiracy accusation. But why do you think it's important? And tell me what we can expect in a Jared DeMarinis administration here.
Well, one, coming from candidacy and campaign finance, transparency is the hallmark of that, right? It's disclosure. So all the bills and all the reports and all the money that it brings legitimacy to the process, and by having the complete and openness of it, it helps counterbalance the conspiracy theorists, because at one point there you can see our activity. There's nothing to hide. There's no back room or anything like that or something else. And one of the things that I'm going to do is change a little bit more on the administrator's report a little bit as well. I'm adding sections about procurements, so that now people are going to be talking about, and this goes back to the budget and stuff like that. So you'll now know when we start issuing RFPs, which is requests for proposal. I just did it, yeah, right?
Good job.
And then basically when we go into the award process, and then when we finally start the commissioning of those awards. So that's going to be a part of it. I'm also doing a little bit more local news, so that I'm going to start highlighting some of their activities as well. So
nice.
So that's going to all be in the admin report. And so basically it's there, and, welcoming questions from the board members, and, making sure that everyone understands the process and can feel like they can participate. One of the things is, I might not agree with everything you say, or we might disagree, fundamentally on certain issues, but you're always welcome to participate. And I think that if you're in the process and there and seeing it, then you'll understand my position, I'll understand yours. And but at the same time, it's not, we don't trust the counting, or we don't trust the validity of anything. It's just more, I would do it a different way. That's fine. But the underlying basis is still there.
So I talked about the State Board of Elections meetings being live streamed, all that. Another kind of transparency, and I just want to make sure that people know this. You can go to your local, or frankly, any counties canvassing procedure. You can be there while they are literally counting the ballots, while they are reviewing them. You can watch a recount up close and personal. There are also video cameras at each of the 24 counties, but you can literally go there. You can't interrupt the process, but you can observe it. So very transparent. Speaking about recounts, we've had a bunch of them. Anything you want to say about that?
I hope they're more infrequent in the future. So, I think every election administrator is like, may the margins be very large.
One way or another.
So I think that's where I want to put that on that.
Is there anything we haven't discussed that you want to mention as a top priority for you for 2024's elections?
I just think that, we are the trusted source of information. And, if there's any sort of issue or question that you have, feel free to either, basically get me on social media or get the state board on social media. Trust us. That's what we're here for, because we will give you just the law and the facts, not any sort of spin attached to it. And it's important. And then that's, we are the trusted source on that front.
Yes. And I just have to say, so the reason that Jared DeMarinis was selected unanimously by a bipartisan board of elections is because you have that credibility. You have always been accessible to legislators of any party, as well as all local boards of elections, and you give your straight scoop. You and I have agreed and disagreed, but you say, great idea, but you might want to tweak this, and I'm so grateful for your expertise and all that.
Thank you.
I have 6 pages of questions, but I think I'm going to skip through a bunch of them. And is there anything we haven't covered that you want to add, or should we go to the Fast Five?
You mentioned about the disclosure and transparency part. I'm a firm believer, just because I've been on overseas elections, so I really see when you need to have the transparency as being an observer for those things there to help, because otherwise it fundamentally alters how people are the ability to govern. If it doesn't start with this, that everyone believes in the election results, it impacts everything from the future for that. So yes.
Absolutely. Before we go to our Fast Five, I have to give a shout out that the first best hire that I think you made was Katy Perry as your deputy. She comes from Carroll County. And so I think having a small county or red county, someone who is so widely known and respected, a leader in the Maryland Association of Election Officials, and someone I've worked with very closely and respect a lot. So kudos to you. And I'm really delighted Katy's going to bring her expertise to the state.
I couldn't be happier. We've gone together full born. This month has been flying by. It's been great.
Yeah, of course.
We both have smiles on the face. Lots of energy is now coming into it. I feel refreshed every night.
I love it. I love it. Well, Jared DeMarinis, Maryland State Administrator of our State Board of Elections. This time for the Fast Five. 5 quick questions, 5 quick answers.
Okay.
So.
This is like Jeopardy.
It's a little, I don't know. You don't have to answer with a question, the form of a question. Question number 1. What election in history do you find most fascinating, and do you wish that you might have been a part of? So before you were ever doing this.
Ooh, I'm gonna go with one of the first Franklin Delano Roosevelt one, because that was a fundamental shift in how we was like laissez-faire to how to a modern era. It changed everything for America with that election. So that was the one historically that I would go with.
Okay. You have 2 daughters, teenagers now, which is crazy.
Yes.
What is your favorite activity? What do you most like to do with them?
I love watching their games, their sports. I get to root from the sidelines there, but nothing beats just with me and them and Chewbacca watching a silly movie on a Saturday or something like that. Just watching a movie and then yelling at the TV about it. But there's nothing more.
Okay. Question number 3. What was your career aspiration as a kid? What did you think you'd want to be when you grew up?
I guess I always wanted to be a lawyer. So I got into law, and then basically from there, I chose a path of election, because it kind of molded a couple of passions of mine altogether.
Right.
So,
so question number 4, do you have an item on your bucket list that you'd like to tell us about?
I did participate in a sausage eating contest for the Sons and Daughters of Italy Lodge in Annapolis. It was I finished in 3rd place. I ate 8.5 or 9 sausages in 2 minutes. It was my best Joey Chestnut's impersonation that I could do.
And Joey Chestnut, for folks who don't know, he's the hot dog guy, right?
Yes, exactly. I turned green. I did not throw up, but man, I was walking. Luckily, Chewy and we afterwards, I took home, and I think I walked for like about 2 hours just to kind of like process it through my body. I will never do it again. And and then at the end of all that, I won 5 pounds of sausages. That was my victory for it. for finishing in third place. So
And I suspect you had no interest in eating those sausages anytime soon, right?
I think I still have the coupon because it's still there, but yes.
That's
But
hilarious.
that was it. That was my one shot. That was a great bucket list item.
And did you have to do the buns too?
No, we just had they
Just
did it just the sausage. It was just it was, and now you're grabbing like greasy sausage. It was not a pleasant sight to watch.
Okay, I want to see the video of that. That's
So,
hilarious.
yes.
Jared DeMarinis, State Administrator of the Maryland Board of Election. Question number 5, the same question I ask everyone. What is your hidden secret superpower? What is a skill or talent you have, something you're really good at that most folks can't do?
Ooh, I don't know. Uh, that one's a tough one there. I gotta, let's say, my skill is I I've got a lot of luck sometimes. Like when I need things to occur, they occur nicely for me. Perfect example was one time I took my daughter to a soccer game. It was Juventus versus Barcelona. It was up in up in New Jersey, and a ball came over like in the parking lot. The guys were playing, and basically, the ball, and I'm not a good soccer player by any means. The ball landed on my foot. I popped it on my foot, and then I kicked it over my shoulder, over her head, and it perfectly landed right back in him, as if it was like the greatest soccer player ever. And those guys were like, "Oh, this is fantastic!" Right? And I was just like, "Yeah, I do that all the time."
Yeah,
right. And my daughter's just like, "You've never done this," and I was just like, "Yeah, but like, it could have gone horribly wrong." But that was like one of the things that I like that, and I'm very good at making them get embarrassed or annoyed. So that's maybe my secret hidden talent.
That's a good one. That's a good one. All right. Well, Jared, I had 6 pages of questions for you, which is why I kept looking down to be like, oh, wait, have I asked this one yet? I have to make sure I get to this one. And
Right.
thank you. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for having this conversation, but truly thank you for your new energy, collaboration, transparency, outreach. You're going to be a wonderful administrator, and I look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate this. And it was a great interview, and I enjoy this and working with you in the future as well. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Well, see you soon.
Yeah, bye.